Thank you. All right, let's get started. We have 20 minutes and quite a lot that I am going to cover. So welcome, everyone. Hopefully you are in the right room. The title of this talk might seem a little provocative, but hopefully you'll stick with me on this. So how many of you feel like you're constantly playing a never-ending game of whack-a-mole with vulnerabilities? Anybody? Yeah? The ones that didn't raise their hands, I'd love to know what you do. Maybe change careers. So today I want to challenge the reactive mindset and offer a path forwards towards building more secure and resilient systems from the start, at the beginning, so that we can finally give up and stop patching vulnerabilities. I'd sure like to. So hi, I'm mauvehed, also sometimes known as Nate Sanders, and I'm quite a lot of different things. I'm a leader, a hacker, a security practitioner, a maker, breaker, advocate, recently back into ham radio, and also to Jeremy and a few others, I am neurospicy. So I have the autism and ADHD, and I love to talk about my interests. So come talk to me if you also. And I have neurospicy stickers. So if you need a neurospicy sticker, come talk to me for one. All right, 40,000. Any guesses as to what this number represents for 2025? All right, the guesses are CVEs. So in the last month. So yeah, new vulnerabilities. We are already trending for another record-breaking year. The volume we're facing is not going to slow down. It is very likely we will be hitting plus 100,000 new vulnerabilities annually in a few short years. All right, so let some of these numbers sink in. Even known vulnerabilities are not getting fixed. Hopefully everyone can see these fine. After 3 months, more than half of the serious vulnerabilities are still present. Just adjust this a little. There we go. This is why we need to stop playing catch up and stop chasing our vulnerabilities. Because year over year, we are seeing an incredible increase. So this is showing the breakdown by year for physical, adjacent, local, and network. And that is not going to slow anytime soon. So let's break down the current state of vulnerability management. The sheer volume is overwhelming. Organizations can't keep up with the pace. Security, IT, and engineering teams are burning out. I have definitely been there multiple times. So the question is, do we really think we can patch every critical vulnerability? That question probably doesn't need an answer. So why are we failing? Well, most breaches are coming from vulnerabilities that we simply haven't patched. Why haven't we patched them? Well, the patching process is way too slow. We've already heard some mention of that. This means that attackers have the advantage of time. And a recent study found that 60% of breaches were due to known but unfixed vulnerabilities. We absolutely cannot patch our way out of this. It's just not going to happen. So, checking in with ourselves as far as all of this precursor data goes, how are we feeling? I think Gurr probably says it best. Sometimes it feels just slightly like we're completely doomed. So this is a huge challenge. Is there any answer to this? I hope so, otherwise this is a short talk. So thankfully, yes, there are answers, but they aren't simple fixes. I would go so far as to say, not unlike DevOps, it is largely a cultural change as well as philosophy. So it's not simple, unfortunately. So it requires turning away from the reactive approach that we've long held, playing whack-a-mole with every individual vulnerability and trying to chase down endless series of patches. We need to be proactive. We need to look at root causes, and we need to be threat-centric. So what is threat-centric? And my slides are online, and there's a great write-up. There's a long, crazy journey from Phoenix Security that talks about this. The threat-centric approach focuses on understanding and addressing the underlying patterns of vulnerabilities, rather than playing whack-a-mole with individual CVEs. CVEs are the identifiers for vulnerabilities, if you are unfamiliar with them. So what we want to understand are the systemic fixes. These could be based on common weaknesses, on known attacker patterns, utilizing the knowledge of an adversary's tactics, techniques, and procedures. Each path in the flowchart represents a different way to analyze and address the root cause, ultimately leading to a comprehensive fix that prevent entire classes of vulnerabilities. That's what we're trying to chase. So let's look at 3 key frameworks that help us understand and fix some of these root causes. We have CWE, which helps us identify and prevent entire classes of vulnerabilities. And we're going to dive into each of these. We have KPEC, which shows us how an attacker actually operates. And then we have MITRE TTPs. This is what lets us build targeted defenses based on those attacker techniques, tools, and procedures. So what's the impact if we go down this route of threat-centric? Many organizations that are embracing this are seeing a dramatic reductions in the total number of vulnerabilities and attacks that are even occurring or being introduced into their environments. So looking at CWE, common weakness enumeration. CWE is a standardized language for describing security weaknesses that help us understand root causes. The key benefit of CWE is that it helps us identify patterns in vulnerabilities to guide our preventative measures. The top CWEs show us that cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and authentication issues remain our biggest challenges. So these are 4 different CWE classes that will categorize types of weaknesses that we might see across our applications. Our prevention strategy here should focus on implementing controls that address entire categories rather than CVEs. CVEs are the individual vulnerabilities, and there could be dozens or hundreds of CVEs that fall under one CWE category. Well, in truth, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands. So next, we can look at KPEC. These are common attack pattern enumeration. KPEC provides a comprehensive catalog of attack patterns that map directly to CWEs and CVEs. So defense planning with KPEC helps us understand attack mechanics to build targeted defenses. These common patterns like authentication bypass and resource manipulation show us where to be focusing our security controls. And the strategic value of KPEC is in helping us anticipate and prevent attacks before they occur. So with the previous CWE, we had things like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and here we're looking at the patterns of different attacks like authentication bypass or data structure attacks. So these are not individual findings. This is another layer of categories that we can be targeting. So TTPs, which comes from MITRE ATT&CK, these are the tools, techniques, and procedures. TTPs break down attacks into tactics, techniques, and procedures to help us understand adversary behavior. The defense matrix helps us map our security controls to specific attack techniques and to identify gaps in our coverage. These categories look like initial access, execution, persistence, and they show us typical attack progression. So this is looking at how an attacker starts their attack, moves through the environment, and gets the Holy Grail. So implementation here means building layered defenses based on known adversary behaviors and techniques. So this is where we can build security to prevent privilege escalation or to prevent things like persistence. So what does all of this get us? And spoiler, there you go. There are many success stories that demonstrate that systemic fixes are not just theoretical, but they work in practice. The key is to invest in security architecture and design patterns that prevent entire classes of vulnerabilities. So Twitter here as an example of safe templating and XSS eliminated. It was at least 10 years ago that there was a Twitter, let's call it a worm, that was basically an on highlight. When you moved your mouse across the message, by doing that, it triggered the HTML for on highlight, and then it immediately reposted the message through your account, and it spread to all of your followers. If you use TweetDeck, 90% of your deck was that same message being repeated. It was not unlike the Sammy worm from MySpace 20 years ago. Oh my gosh. 25 years ago. That was similar in being XSS. So platforms like Twitter identified we have to target cross-site scripting as a huge area of potential concern. So a case study from ClearBank, this found that 91% of the noise was knocked out by this kind of approach. And I've attended a number of talks at different conferences where I've heard teams, and that includes Netflix, has talked about attacking entire classes of vulnerabilities and wiping them out across their CI and CD pipelines. So the key insight here is that in security, prevention is going to be stronger than remediation. Because we don't want to be playing whack-a-mole anymore. I've done it for too much of my career. So where can we apply this or begin thinking about these strategies? Spoiler. Threat modeling. So there's a large number of frameworks out there. Threat modeling, if anyone is not familiar, is the idea of looking at your environment, your application, looking at things called trust boundaries to see where there might be potential dangers as data moves through an application or system. So Stride and Pasta are great. Threat modeling can often be very overwhelming, which is why I love to recommend to people the 4-question framework. Those 4 questions, they're your daily stand-up for security. What are we building? What could go wrong? What are we doing about it? And did we do a good job? That's not a very complicated threat model to walk through. So Stride, Pasta, many other threat modeling frameworks out there, you gotta start somewhere. And there are very measurable outcomes. Things like 40% cost reduction when fixing this in design versus in production. If we wait until these things are all in our environment, trying to get them back out is going to be very costly. And the benefits here are pretty immediate. You catch issues early, you save money, and you build team knowledge. A threat model is a great way to help share knowledge about an application. A threat model should include many different experts from domains and areas of the product, the service, and there's a lot of knowledge to be shared and gained there. Or am I on time? Okay. So how do we patch less? I've got this brilliant idea. It's going to change everything. It's called ephemeral infrastructure. It's totally brand new. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's gonna be a game changer. So to get through this a little quicker, no more patching running systems. Automated replacement of vulnerable components. Reducing the attack surface. You want to talk about things like persistent attacks and them getting a foothold, not with ephemeral infrastructure. So Netflix pioneered this. I think we all know the story pretty well, and we can't keep operating like it's 2005. It's funny how we keep talking about that era. 1,000-day uptimes used to be cool. Trust me, I'm a 90s system administrator. It was awesome if you broke 1,000 days. That's not cool anymore, very much. So 2 approaches on this. We have the traditional approach, vulnerabilities discovered, we rush to patch it, we wait for testing, which takes time or gets rushed, we deploy it and hope nothing breaks. Notice how it ends in hope. That is not a strategy. Instead, we can, sorry for the colors, they might be blown out, we can start with secure design principles, build security by default, use threat intelligence to stay ahead, and continuously improve our architectures. One is firefighting, and the other prevents fires from starting. So, formula for success, secure by design with a threat-centric vulnerability management approach means fewer patches, more resilience. Because I'm very short on time, I want to get to a couple key slides. Key takeaways, root causes, focusing on patterns. We want to stop chasing individual vulnerabilities and look for the patterns. Secure by default, choosing frameworks and tools that build security in from the start. Immutable systems, embracing ephemeral infrastructure. When you find a vulnerability, replace the system, don't patch it. Shift left, what a concept. Security isn't a bolt-on. It needs to be part of your design process from day one. Remember, the goal isn't to patch faster, it's to need fewer patches in the first place. So here's a good one for what can you do Monday? How can you take this information and get started with it immediately? So look at your recent incidents, review your configurations, start small, pick a system that's constantly being patched, and plan how to make it replaceable instead. Security discussions don't need to be a long, blown-out thing. Even a 15-minute checkpoint at a project start can prevent a major issue from happening later. The key is to start somewhere, pick one of these actions, and commit to doing it this week. I've got a bunch of resources up here that will be in the slides. QR code for talk. That's awesome. There's a QR code over here. Amazing. Okay. Well, it renders on my machine. Either way, though, mvh.dev/talks. This talk is online, PDF, or the slide dev. I'm mauvehed. Thank you very much. Come talk to me. I'm sure there are lots of questions.